So I'm going to reveal what we came to after the audit, but it's interesting to me that there's commonality in some of these. So who wants to go first and share where they landed?
We started with something to the tune of deliver UC research-based solutions to California's diverse communities, and then we're like, oh my gosh, how many times have we heard that? And so we wanted something, and so we took that and kind of broke it down to a very basic, like, we got you covered, California. But what we ended up with is we care how you live, work, and play, California, almost as if it's a billboard and we're talking to you being California as a resident, and then, having our brand present there. So
thank you.
That's what we came up with.
Let's go here next.
Okay. So we came up with UC for all. So what does that mean? We're talking about bringing UC level education, research, and then programs. That's what we're talking about, integrated pest management program, master gardener programs, 4-H programs. I'm bringing that down to the local network. And speaking of networks, scope of network. Bringing together, researchers and farm advisors with growers and producers, not to mention having the researchers collaborating with each other as well, and the accessibility, how easy it is to access all that information for free without a paywall. So my example would be like, going to America's Test Kitchen and looking up any recipe that you want, and then knowing that there's like thousands of hours behind each recipe, but in this case it would be for free. That's where your tax dollars are going to as well. And the diversity of Californians in general, how all that research is just can be tailored towards diverse communities within California. So yeah. So again, UC for all.
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Melissa.
Let's go here now.
So we came up with connecting Californians with science-based solutions.
Very nice. Yeah. Was it a pretty quick process? Did you kind of land on it quickly together? That's interesting.
Yeah.
I like it. Thank you.
Theme through solution-focused research, UC ANR brings Californians together.
I like that you got the citizen brand archetype in there with the connection, right? Thanks.
We had a couple different versions, but we landed on UC ANR connects the power of the UC research to local California communities. Mm-hmm. So the thought was to have a stronger connection to the UC and how it directly impacts the communities that we work with. We had other concepts in there that try to grab all the different programming, and we felt like that just took away from the message, so we focused on this.
Yeah, simple is better, right?
Well, what we did was we actually sat down and took a lot of the words that we had talked earlier, and ours is very similar to yours, science-based, unbiased solutions for all Californians. What we wanted to emphasize, not only the science-based side of things, but it also is unbiased in the sense of we're not paid for, we're paid, but we're not paid for what we do. Like, we don't have chemical companies come in, kind of that side of things. I'll stop there.
I like it.
Things on the trusted portion where it can be seen as a.
And this isn't set in stone. It can iterate more, but this is our current brand promise. We bring UC research-based information and practices to local communities to improve their lives and livelihoods. Does it work for you? Can you see your work in it? Is it missing anything? Dohi thinks we got y'all's better.
We got you, bro.
We got you, bro.
Everybody said that, Linda, so I think.
Good, yeah. And you can iterate, some of the stuff you have here, you could iterate into really strong advertising. And they're all great keywords to include in messaging, but in terms of a unified brand promise, this is where we are.
We're all kind of writing our own content for our specific purposes. these different variations, to me, sounds a lot like what our brand promise is. Would these be appropriate kind of variations, or are we within
in what context are you going to use it?
So let's say I'm creating content to talk to donors and I have a statement like this. Would this be reflective of our brand promise? Or is this, okay.
Yeah. And we have media boilerplate, which we're going to talk about in a minute, that's different than this. This is just where we landed for, this is what we do for who.
Okay.
The core of what we do for who. Yeah. Okay. What people can expect from interacting with our organization.
In the previous slide, you had said information and practices, and so you separate those two, and then you have lives and livelihoods. Mm-hmm. Could you talk more about that?
We wanted to get across the fact that we support economic development is a huge part of our value proposition.
Uh-huh.
And then information and practices, because it's not just information, we are doing hands-on, boots on the ground work, sharing our, digging up stuff with farmers and taking kids to livestock fairs and whatever, right? So, and it's not the most creative sentence, but it captures what we do, right?
I don't think this is outside probably what all the feedback on cleaning up, but for me it was using terms kind of like research-based information. It's very long instead of just saying we bring research. And then to say local communities also feels like, okay, well, your community is local to you, right? So you could probably get rid of that extra word too. So bringing research, research,
and practices.
bringing UC research into our communities, improving lives and livelihoods, just really making it a little bit more concise.
Cool. Great suggestions. Thank you. We are going to switch gears now to talking about the audit. And this is where I hope that you're not so full from lunch that you start nodding off, because there's a lot to cover. But so the charge that I gave them, as I mentioned earlier, was we need help with our brand. It's broken. I need someone. I've been trying to do stuff internally, myself for 3 years, and it's not working, and I've run out of ideas. So I need outside eyes to come in, and you can't redesign the ANR logo. That's off the table because senior leadership doesn't support that. But given that, please help us develop a better brand strategy and develop some recommendations for aligning what we have so that it's the best it can be with all of its limitations. And then to do that, they conducted 12 individual interviews. I think some of you in this room were part of that. And then some follow-up discussions after the interviews if they needed clarification on the input. They did a lot of desktop research where they looked, and we have a huge ecosystem of websites, right? And they looked at hundreds of websites and some of our publications, our social media platforms, and not just at the UC ANR level, but also at the programmatic level. And then they did 2 different strategy workshops with half a dozen or a dozen people for each one. And then they wrote this 88-page report, which I have a hard copy of, with the recommendations. And so what I'm going to touch on now is just the recommendations. So they provided a set of global guidelines, meaning these are the high-level things that you need to work on. And some of this has come out in your discussion today, so I know that it's validated. Reduce complexity, duh, right? Reduce the variance. We have a variance within how all the county offices refer to themselves and brand themselves, and there's just no end of variance. We haven't done a good job of really articulating and reinforcing our key messages, like the one that we just went over. That needs to be part of onboarding information. It needs to be part of new employee orientation. The brand and stewarding the brand needs to be incorporated into everything that we do that relates to messaging. We need to do a better job of explaining the role of the parent brand. There should be a visual formula for UCR affiliation. I think they're thinking a lot about the websites and how they all look different in the way that they affiliate with ANR, and they all some of them link back to ANR, some programmatic websites, some don't. Some county offices link back to ANR, some don't. So we have to create as much similarity as possible across all of our assets. Improve and shorten the textual formula. This is the media boilerplate that improve or shorten the way that we explain our affiliation. And then what we're doing now is educate the organization on the role of the parent brand, why brand unity is important, and all the brand attributes and values. So just a little bit more detail on the textual formula. This is what we use right now. It's our media boilerplate, and a lot of people incorporate it into their presentations and annual reports and things like that. So if you have ideas for shortening, I am all ears. This is just, also some people have a hard time with the word power. They don't like the word power in that. And it's just, I mostly inherited this. I think I massaged it a little bit, but this was already in place when I joined. So how should we shorten that so that it's not so much of a mouthful?
Sorry, can you reiterate who the audience is?
This is, well, it goes on the bottom of all of our news releases, and it is like a foundational thing that people use to show their affiliation with ANR. Like I've seen it in PowerPoints, I've seen it on annual reports, so that it's mostly an external audience. All right, so then they gave us a long list of actionable initiatives, and this is where I'd like you to be thinking about, is this relevant to my work? Can I do anything in this area to help advance the UC ANR brand? And the first one is improve or redesign all available logos. And I don't expect you all to go out and redesign your logos. I'll tell you what I'm doing on that front is I'm trying to get additional funding to have a consulting firm, hopefully the same one since they're already so versed in our brand, take a run at redesigning our brand the sub-brand family to be more aligned. Because when you look at it, you remember the earlier slide, it doesn't look like they're all in the same family at all. They're not even all using the same color palette. So how is anyone ever going to associate us all as the same brand if we don't do a better job there? So I'm waiting to hear. They asked me to make it part of my budget call. It just would be really interesting, even if we decide not to adopt it because some people are attached to their old marks or they don't want to go that route or they had a recent redesign like Syrup or something. I still think it's a valuable exercise for us to get that sort of guidance, right? And then they suggest that we redesign solutions to implement the brand signature for each brand, and I have a slide with more details on that. It's basically how we co-brand, the programs with the master brand or the parent brand. I don't like the word master brand, but a lot of people use it in the industry. Display the brand architecture. I thought that was, and somebody mentioned wanting a slide to use in their presentations, which is great. Any way we can get it in front of more eyeballs is going to be helpful. And, so that was a good suggestion. Use a purpose statement to unite the brand. That is, it's kind of like an internal rallying cry. I kind of feel like, though, it would just be similar to what our brand promise is, right? I mean, but anyway, that's just one recommendation we could choose to implement or not. And the promise statement is really important to have everybody feel like they can see themselves in that and try to socialize it and include it in onboarding. Just really, continually beat the drum on this is what our brand is and this is what we do for others. Using keywords to inform messaging, there's a bunch of keywords that they captured and we've got some captured here today from your discussions, and it's just really important that our messaging touch those and include those. And then use focus areas to define audience groups. They wanted us to dive deeper into, they really liked the focus area section of the website. And they thought that was a useful way to divide our work. And I don't know why. I mean, we have the focus areas and then we have the strategic initiatives. I mean, it gets very confusing, right? And then we have the list of programs. And so anyway, just something for us to consider, like maybe we lead with the focus areas instead of always having to name the program of everything. Does that make sense? Because like the family focus area includes 4-H and Master Gardeners and other things, right? Anyways, and then online visual consistency. They just really hammered that all of our websites look so different, and I assured them that we're trying to work on that with the integrated web project, and eventually we will have a nice modern website, and probably be long after I retire, but Anyway, so just to show you a visual of redesigning the solution. So our current way of co-branding for Master Gardeners is on the right. It's very unwieldy, it's long, it's hard to fit on a wearable, it's hard to fit on a document. And so they suggested, and they weren't supposed to do this, but they also, revised the UC ANR logo, which I'll show you in a second. But I thought that it was very clean what they came up with, right? And then the other thing I like about what they've done here, I like the one on the bottom, because I think it's absolutely appropriate to emphasize the programmatic brand in the co-branded treatment. Like, it should not be screaming ANR. It just needs to be included, right? Whereas that screams ANR on the right. So, and that's really hard for the programs to work with. I guess it's later that I'm going to show you. Oh, and this is just more on the brand purpose statement that we can choose to do or not. But I think it's the same as the brand promise personally, but because I don't want to complicate the messaging even more. But improving the lives of all Californians is our de facto brand purpose statement. We use it all the time, right? All right, hang in there. I know it's a lot of words and slides, but the structural consistency, they want all the websites to look the same and have, so that when you're in an ANR website, like it's familiar to you, like it would be if you're on Rolex or Disney or Nike, right? And then make sure people are consistently linking back to the main page, otherwise the user never knows that there's an ANR affiliation. Using established messaging on social media bios, it's really important that social media reflect our brand, and it's kind of the wild, wild west, especially with some of the volunteers, and it's no fault of theirs. It's just we haven't given them what they need. We don't have the established messaging to have them share, but we do now. We have a lot more now. So design visual patterns that ensure consistency and creativity. That's a social media style palette, which you've seen corporations do. You recognize when you get a social media post from the New York Times or whatever, because it has a certain look and feel, right? I'm going to just take one short pause here. Is there anything that you've seen yet that you feel like, oh, I could apply that to my work, or I could apply that to my communications products, or I could do, yeah. What was it?
Yeah, well, a lot of these things, if I had all of the tools and templates, I would do social media posts more frequently, right? If I had a guidance on what the social media post should look like and say, I would probably do it more frequently, right? Yeah. So I encourage that.
Yeah. Anything else that you thought, oh, I might be able to take this back to my work, or I might be able to think about this in my work?
I think just from the Master Gardener world with the volunteers, we see a lot of difference between volunteer programs that have staff and volunteer programs that are run by volunteers, where there's typically turnover and maybe you have somebody that's great. So just, like having established templates, and I think being able to implement that statewide is going to be incredibly helpful, especially like this training. I'm just thinking in my mind, like, how can I get this information out to the people and the hands that need it? So I definitely think I'm taking a lot of the action items and developing a strategy or a plan to start to think about how to implement that in the future. I know that you're still, I don't know that we're ready for launch, but yeah, I think all of this is incredibly helpful, especially when somebody starts, because I think they have the best intentions and they want to follow. And it's a lot harder once they have that independence to say, oh, wait, you now need to follow, these guidelines, or you can't create your own template in social media, and now you should use only these. And so I think it'll just be like incredibly helpful in the future to like get it going as soon as we can.
I know. We're trying to do as much as we can on our own with, with no outside financial investment, the low-hanging fruit. But there's stuff that we just don't have capacity to do. Great. Anything else? Anyone else saw that connected with what they do? I mean, I hope you'll think of something as we go along here. They thought that we should really push, the brand values, and really incorporate them into all of our internal communications, at least, and onboarding. And then there's another layer of work you can do with the brand archetype. It's a whole exercise where you apply it to your messaging, and that's another thing that they recommended. I don't know when I'm going to have the bandwidth to do that, but it is another thing that they recommended. And then I wanted to show you a couple of their visual suggestions. One thing that we struggle with is a lot of people want to use the square social media version of UC ANR as the logo because the other logo is so unwieldy. So they iterated little buttons that are better than that square version and that could be used either in social media or as a marker on publications so that, again, we're not screaming ANR, but it's there, which I really liked. And then we asked them to iterate a poster campaign to reach an underserved community to share information about programming that might interest that community. And I like what they did there as well. You can see it looks like it's all the same brand family, even with our divergent logos. They managed to pull that off with just a little bit of iteration on how we co-brand. And here's the, I told them this was off the table, but they did it anyway. But I didn't resonate, like, I didn't see this and go, oh yeah, we should change to that. It's like, no, I don't need another iteration of, this might be a more solid and better design choice, but not enough to justify me rolling out yet another logo when we just adopted the current logo in 2019. So yeah, but they're designers and they didn't like the balance of our logo, so they played with it. And then here's, they just offered some sample style palettes, that they've found elsewhere that just so that, and I like the idea of maybe one of those, and Brennan's working on this actually, he's gonna design a style palette for us. So I like those little bugs from the document, and I just think just even having that little bug as the unifying element on our social media posts would go a long way. So now we're going to get into the wrap-up part of the day, and we might even end a little early. But before we do that, I just wanted to do some quick wrap-up, like takeaways. Just want to make sure people learned something in at least one of these categories. So just take a minute to think about it, and then if you're comfortable sharing takeaways, I really appreciate knowing some of the things that you learned, or even something that you want to learn more about.
I learned a lot about the ANR brand personality and really thinking through everything that we put out, kind of tying it back to who we want the public or what we want our brand to be. I think it'd be interesting to do this exercise even for our sub-brands. So yeah, that was something I learned about, thinking, okay, maybe we could have a work session for our sub-brands down the road. And then I'm curious from you, what you see the next steps in this branding process being, and what the timeline is for when you think things will start moving forward for the rollout.
Yeah. The next step is the big project with the firm, if it's approved by senior leadership, because that's a key. The visual stuff is really key. And then I'm just on the sidelines working on the rest. This is going to really inform this workshop, and the one in Irvine will help me iterate and finalize our messaging. That's what the part of the purpose of these is I want it to be reflective of as much of the organization as I can. And then I guess we'll have some sort of launch if we have to, right? But I don't know when. I'm not even allowed to know the answer if I'm going to do the work until September, right? Until we get our budgets. So can't give. I'm saying the generous timeline would be a year, and then it may be longer. There's the UC bureaucracy. I know. Yeah, but that doesn't mean we don't do any work until then. Yeah. We just work at the grassroots level. I'm not going to do a grand launch until it's ready, but it doesn't mean that I'm not going to continue to do workshops and try to raise awareness about branding in the meantime, right?
I don't envy your role in this, but how, and forgive me for the poor choice of words, but how do you police the use of the wrong branding, without having to have everyone filter something through you, or single point of contact to make sure that it's consistent?
You build a culture of brand stewards. and you just nicely ask people to update, because usually, we were talking about this at the back table too, usually it's an error of ignorance, not a maliciousness. And so it's just constantly like, I do it all the time because I see the wrong logos on people's email signatures, and I just politely send them the right logo and say, would you mind switching this out? We adopted this logo in 2019. And you just keep doing it, you know?
Like, to your point, like you have a beautiful resource on our website, but how many people
Yeah, we have to socialize it
know that
more.
it's there?
We're going to talk about it at the town hall this week. Yep, for that reason.
Kind of the opposite sentiment of Emily. I'm like, I kind of envy your, because I think this work is fun. But no, what I learned today is everybody in this room, you started the session by saying a diverse representation, but I felt like we were all on the same page of knowing what UC ANR's brand promise and what our key brand words are, our archetype or what have you. But what I learned is how people are intentionally not using our brand in order to speak more effectively to their targeted audience. So they know the right thing to do, they know the right brand, they know the right words, and intentionally using UC Davis's link or whatever it might be. And so I would say to make sure you capture that as well when you go to Irvine, or if you roll this messaging out in a town hall, as an example of, if we're all going to work together and raise awareness of UC ANR and all the hard work we're doing and make sure we matter and we count and our brand is known, we have to stop those practices. And then whatever, Cindy, is that your name? I can't read it from across the room. Whatever Cindy offered as a solution, make sure we're sharing that, because I'm sure there's other advisors and other staff doing the same thing. So that was something I learned today. I didn't realize people are intentionally using the UC Davis brand or other UC brands, you know, which is a whole nother challenge.
Yeah. Just take a look at the RIC websites. And that's
which ones?
The RIC, Research and Information Centers. That's another layer of my nightmare.
So I was going to go back to also what Cindy said. Is there a move to get some sort of branded wear that is more accessible to everybody, so that when you go to an event?
I am making, thanks to the pioneering efforts of our Master Gardener program, we are going to launch a Land's End promotional store. We're just waiting for the last hurdle with BOC. It has been a process, let me tell you. And it's been challenging to get the logos just right, too. We have challenging logos in terms of embroidery. We are launching with ANR, 4-H, Master Food Preserver, and Cooperative Extension logos, because those were kind of the low-hanging fruit that we wanted. That people were requesting those items with those logos. But we're open to adding more, and it's a really flexible format, and everyone could just buy their own thing and get it sent to their own office, and you don't have to have any kind of central distribution, so it'll be great. But we do also have vendors that we work well with together that we recommend, like Ink Monkey and Image Masters. So anytime anyone wants promo items, we're happy to help you and make recommendations and review proofs and all that good stuff. So. Yeah, you want that? Okay, let's get her going.
Oh yeah, I was just saying that. Recently, just made a Western IPM shirt. So yeah, talk to Matt if you need anything too. So.
Linda, so if we have an approved designed logo that has been created, for instance, for Giving Day, I know I make that as part of a toolkit that we make available to participating groups, but can that be part of the overall toolkit, branding toolkit that you put out, so that people have a centralized resource for all of that too?
You want to include a link to it in the communications toolkit?
Yes.
Yeah, we can create.
Yeah, just to try and drive home, like, there's one source to get the true, accurate information.
That makes sense.
That would be helpful.
Yeah,
I think.
good. Will do.
And for anybody else who might be in that same boat.
Other takeaways?
So kind of along the lines of the logo, where if we're going to have a centralized identity, I think it would be good to have everything centralized in terms of logo wear and templates and everything else. That way it's more accessible for newer workers. Like myself and Tara, our department has kind of fallen off the wayside a little bit in their strive for identity, and so that's what I've been trying to deal with. And I am trying to adhere to the premises of keeping everything unified, but it's been difficult. Like, I can't find banners, and I can't find tablecloths with our logo, with the correct logo, and T-shirts and everything like that. And then like the presentation, the templates and everything. So it's all kind of spread out, and it would be good just to have that centralized, maybe in the toolkit, everything that you need right in one spot.
Yeah, we've tried to do that, but there's glaring deficiencies. And then we also have, offices in every county except for one, I think, and there's going to be divergence. It's really hard, and, but I always want to hear feedback. So if there's something particular you want in the toolkit, like Emily had a very specific request, just let me know.
So I would like that slide that shows visually that I can explain to people what UC ANR is and where I fall along that path. That would be extremely helpful in being able to get that information across so people can start recognizing in my counties what UC ANR is. I did have one other thing and now I forgot. I'll pass it on to someone else so I can remember.
How about the quiet table in the back? Just one takeaway back there.
Thank you. We started the day with the elevator pitch, and I think it's kind of interesting that it's comforting to know that everybody kind of struggles with defining us. I mean, Ethan's definition would have taken you up like you'd have to have a skyscraper to get up there to finish with the lymph node metaphor. But it's interesting. I mean, we're kind of a mess. So it's like we've straightened up some things in this meeting, but it's kind of my takeaway. It's like
a lot of work to do.
Good luck. Yeah, it's tricky. But that's probably a strength of the organization too, is being complex, having all these different appendages. It's probably we could spin it as a strength also. So
yeah, extremely diverse and multifaceted. Yeah.
I do want to make a plug because I just started in January and I just Googled ANR marketing toolbox and it was a very valuable, what's on there right now is very, very valuable. And I personally have used it almost immediately. And I think that's where some of my key words that we have been using in here has been very, it's landed with me. So good. I know we have a long ways to go and you're doing a lot of great work, but you also have a lot out there. And
thank you.
Knowing that it's a resource, I think is valuable for new employees like I am.
I'm so glad.
Yeah. I remembered. So when you do the orientations for new employees, do they cover this the toolkit?
If they invite me to the orientation, yeah.
Yeah, because this would be. This is. I think this is one of the things that is available to us as advisors, but oftentimes gets lost. That no one tells you about it, therefore you don't know, and then you're just making presentations and not realizing that you could be branding it yourself while you're doing it. So I don't know if it's, I did do the orientation a long time ago. I don't remember it being covered. It was actually told to me by my boss for UCIPM was like, hey, here's the newest version of the toolkit.
Oh, I love that.
So I think maybe there might be an area if they're not getting it, they're not necessarily getting it from other people.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point. We are going to socialize it at the town hall, which is good, but just we have to keep doing it,
I agree with what everyone said, and I've seen from our own team if somebody is new coming in, they create a PowerPoint and it looks very unique and beautiful, but it's not in alignment with your toolkit. And so we as a team share your toolkit pretty readily, but I could see how someone new who didn't have someone looking at their work before they went out into the world. So why can't we share it on a town hall intermittently?
Yeah.
Because I think it is so important and definitely should be a priority, Linda. If we're going to get consistency across the state, just a plug-in for your toolkit or something, just something very simple.
Yeah.
Here's
We were
our
thinking
logo.
about
In
that
case you
too.
haven't seen our new logo or know our brand promise, here it is, and here's a link to the toolkit. Like Pam could say it in 2 minutes, like a commercial on the town hall.
Yeah.
Linda, I can share that at the next new employee orientation, the marketing toolkit. So, because we have, I think, 5 minutes for Staff Assembly Council. So I'm happy to
awesome. Yeah.
include that and make sure people click on it. So
Cool.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I was just going to say, we started a new process this year, Missy and I, when we get a new program coordinator on, and we spend a total of 8 hours, but it's chunked into 2-hour segments, and one of the segments is on branding and communication, and we use your toolkit to go over where ANR falls in, where the Master Gardener falls in, just because we feel like that's where it starts, is, from the very beginning, and hopefully that information will get passed down. But I'm happy to share with you the little presentation that we put together that we share with Master Gardener staff if you want to use something,
And that
or
could help me train others to do the
for
same.
other statewide programs.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'd add to that. So we have 6,300 Master Gardener volunteers, and Melissa has incorporated the brand and the brand promise into all of their onboarding and training. And then, like she said, we've got it for the coordinators. We also do it for our advisors. People need to hear things 3 times before they kind of commit it. So I think town hall, academic, or new employee orientation. And then when we have our individualized statewide program orientations, we've got 4 levels: volunteer, coordinator, advisor, and we're about to roll out the county director version as well. And all of them include the brand promise, and where to find the associated materials.
Right on. Brand allies.
Another maybe a potential resource is doing a webinar kind of version of this day.
Yeah, I think that's what Ethan's going to
so that it's on camera for folks.
Yeah.
And it was a couple of years ago, there was a 30-minute lunchtime presentation on how to give a good PowerPoint presentation. And I'll see if I can talk to Jody, and maybe she's got it saved in the learning and development catalog. But it was some of the best 30 minutes I have spent learning about what to do and what not to do in PowerPoint. So even outside of the template, which is helpful, like in terms of how many words should be on a slide, and
quick how-to.
Yeah, it was just really, really informative and upped the game, I think, of everyone's presentations that attended that.
Yeah, great. All right, so from my standpoint, this is what I hope. If you don't remember anything else from today, I hope you remember that everyone's responsible for stewarding our brand, and that we have to be better about brand unity. It's so essential. And the parent brand is important. I understand there are some contexts where it's better to leave it out, but when you think about raising our overall brand awareness and you think about your audience, please don't leave UC ANR out when it should be mentioned. Like anyone who could potentially fund us, anyone who could potentially influence their legislator. I mean, it's always a good idea to include the parent brand. And obviously we still have a lot of work to do. And then please do get to know and use the toolkit if you don't already, and share it out with colleagues as much as possible. So there's an evaluation online. She told me to do it online, so I didn't print anything out. If you could please fill that out. This is a learning and development funded activity, so it's required that we do the evaluations and we measure outcomes and all that good stuff. And thank you so much. You guys were awesome. So many great ideas.